why I'm adopting a child with Down syndrome, and why I think other people should consider it too. Hey guys, today I just wanted to do a video on Down syndrome adoption, adopting a child with Down syndrome, why I think it's so important, and my thoughts and feelings about it and whatnot. This video is probably going to be divided more into two parts. The first part I'm just going to talk about Down syndrome adoption in general, and why Down syndrome adoption is so important, and then the second part I'm probably going to go into more about me and like my journey and whatnot. For those that don't know, I am adopting a child with Down syndrome from Bulgaria. The process is kind of stuck because the process actually ends up so fast that in order to start the application process, I have to have the funds ready to go, because they don't want you to like get the ball rolling, get a match, and then not have the money to pay the rest of the agency fees and country fees and whatnot. So until I have the money all ready to go, it's just stuck. Once it does start going though, it will be fast. Right now my goal is kind of like to push and try to get all the money raised and saved by January of 2017. Actually I only need 15,000 raised in order to meet this goal, which at this point is 2,900 and I think 3 more donations of $5. But if I can do it, have the process really starting by January 2017, then I could possibly have her home in 2017. So anyway, I will talk more about that after. So with Down syndrome adoption in general, a lot of people are like, why don't you adopt domestically? Why not adopt a child from foster care? And just more about why internationally. And here in North America, there are actually not a lot of children available to adopt that have Down syndrome. I'm not to say that other children with other disabilities are not worthy of being adopted. It's just, for me, I am very much called to adopt a child with Down syndrome, and for me that's kind of the special need that I am very much called to adopt. Just like these other children are just as deserving to be adopted, children with Down syndrome are just as deserving to be adopted as well. I don't think there's a right group of children to be adopted. So anyway, with Down syndrome here in North America, we choose to abort children with Down syndrome. Parents are pressured into aborting them. Doctors just see it as this disorder that can be eradicated. And for those that don't actually know children with Down syndrome or adults with Down syndrome, I think that it's really a disservice to this world to be eliminating these people, because that's what they are. They are people, and they can really influence the world and make it such a brighter place. But yeah, so here in North America, our usual course of action is abortion when diagnosed prenatally. There are obviously some children that are not diagnosed prenatally, but those that are born with the prenatal diagnosis are raised by their family. Their family chooses to keep them. I think there are probably those that diagnose prenatally but don't believe in abortion and therefore will give birth and place them for adoption, or those that are born without a prenatal diagnosis and then they place them for adoption. The thing with that is there's not as many because of most people choosing to abort. I think in the United States it might be a little bit easier just because numbers wise there's more people that in the States and therefore more people having children in the States, and private adoption is a lot easier in general in the States, not in terms of paperwork and emotions and all that, but in terms of actual like timeline wise, just because there's a bigger population. We don't have as many placements here in Canada, but everything that I've read is domestic adoption of Down syndrome children tend to have wait lists because there's that many people open to adopting a child with Down syndrome, either through the foster care system or through private adoption, but not so much internationally. And or they're open to international and then they adopt internationally, but in terms of domestic, it just seems like there's a lot of wait lists. Also, here in North America, we have so many resources. So say a child is born with Down syndrome and they are placed into foster care. They're going into a loving foster home, usually. I know there's horrible foster care out there, but they are placed into a foster home with a foster family, usually. And they are raised in that foster family, and they will be, like I said, there's often wait lists, so they are adopted quickly. And they have speech and language therapy right away. They have occupational therapy right away. They get those resources right away because they're born in North America. In other countries, they're not aborted as often because there's not as much prenatal diagnosis. And when they are born, there's such a stigma against it that they are often abandoned at the hospital or they are abandoned at an orphanage. I have read stories where doctors try to convince the parents to keep the child alive as a living organ donor. And basically they are not treated like human beings. Here in North America, if a child is placed into a foster home, they are still treated like a living, breathing soul. And unfortunately, in other countries, they are not. If they are lucky enough to be placed into an orphanage and not used as a living organ donor or killed or whatever other option the parents and the doctors decide to do, they are basically ignored. Orphanages in other countries are difficult because there's so many kids, not enough caregivers. They tend to just put the kids in general, not just special needs children, but in general children, just in little cribs with a bunch in a room, and they provide their basic needs, but not anything after that. And children with special needs, like I said, there's such a stigma against it that they are then ignored. They are not touched, they are not loved, they don't get that affection. So what ends up happening is they tend to go within themselves, and they do stuff like there's a lot of head shaking or banging their head against the crib, and a lot of just withdrawal. They aren't treated like human beings, so why should they think that they're human beings? When your cries go unanswered for so long, why should you think that anyone's ever going to answer it? So there's a lot of trauma and a lot of neglect involved for children in other countries with special needs, including Down syndrome. A lot of these countries do not have the resources to help parents with children with Down syndrome. So even if they chose to keep their child and parent them, they don't have the resources like we have in North America. So, and the stigma too. The stigma is such a huge part, especially if the child's born out of wedlock. On top of that, it's like you have a child out of wedlock plus they have Down syndrome. It's just a disaster scenario for a lot of moms. So they are basically adoption or placing the child for adoption is their option. So anyway. So basically, with children with Down syndrome, their lives are not good in orphanages. And unlike here in North America, where they might have a future if they are allowed to live, but in other countries, they might grow up their entire life in an orphanage where they have no love at all. They have no stimulation at all. They're just placed in a crib and just left there. We feed them, we clothe them, and that's it. Like they're shells of themselves and shells of what they could be. And it's really painful to see pictures and whatnot. Bulgaria is really tight on their privacy of children to be adopted, but you basically can just look at any orphanage and then imagine that being worse for children with special needs. There's tons of stories online. I try to avoid them, but coming across them when I'm looking for Down syndrome adoption articles and stuff like that, unfortunately come across them. But you can really see the difference in these children. I'll post down below some links. There's a couple that I follow. There's two people that I follow that they have both adopted from Bulgaria, specifically children with Down syndrome. And then I'll also have some links down below of people who have adopted children with Down syndrome from China, and then some people who just have children with Down syndrome in general. These children are such a light and such a joy, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to reach out to some of them, and they all say the same thing, where their children have just enhanced their lives so much. And so this is kind of going to go into the part where I'm talking more specifically about me, but so I don't know, with adopting a child with Down syndrome, I feel like the past 3 years, everything I've been through has been for a reason, and that reason has been to bring me to this point where I am extremely determined to adopt a child from Bulgaria with Down syndrome. And I think before there was a lot of, like last year I met with the adoption agency, and I did a video on that, which will pop up there. But when I met with her, there was so much apprehension about restarting the adoption process. For those that don't know, I started the adoption process in 2014 to adopt privately, and that was just, the process was easy. The waiting to be matched and the birth moms changing their mind and stuff like that was extremely hard emotionally. And then I had other stuff going on in the background in the rest of my life that made it even harder. So restarting the process, again, I was going, okay, well, how much is this going to cost me? How difficult is this going to be? What do I need to do? Oh, you're going to make me do this. You're going to make me do that. And it was just, I wasn't ready. I felt that there was going to be there had to be an easier way. There had to be something easier, some easier way to become a parent. And when it comes down to it, as much as I want to be a mom, there's so many children out there that want a parent or need a parent. I don't need to create another life. There's plenty of lives out there just waiting to have families, and I can give that gift to a child, and they can give me the gift of becoming a mom. I think it's hard for those who don't have the, I don't know, desire to adopt. Like, I don't have the desire to be pregnant, so I don't know what it's like when someone goes, oh, I really, really, really want to be pregnant. I have no clue what that feels like. And I think it's the opposite for those, whereas I'm like, I really, really, really want to adopt. I think it's also hard for those who don't understand that feeling to understand where I'm coming from. But I've always wanted to adopt, and I feel like everything that I've been through for the past 3 years has been to bring me to this point where I am, no matter what, I'm going to make this happen. If it takes me 5 years to make it happen, I'll do it. If it takes me 6 months to do it, I'll do it. Like, I don't care at this point. My maximum timeline right now is 2 years to start the process, and that's because I will find a way. I will work as many hours as I need to work. I will get it done. I will make whatever sacrifices I need to, because there is a child out there, or there will be a child out there that's waiting to come home. And if sure, she's, like someone said, she might not even be born yet, and therefore she's not waiting for me. But still, there's going to be a point where she is born and she is waiting for me. And I just want to get her home. You don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 years. The laws can change at any point. The doors on countries can close at any point. I just need to push and get her home. I don't have a specific match yet. Like I said, I'm stalled in the process right now. There's absolutely nothing I can do until I have that money, because the application to home could be as short as like 9 months. So in order to start the process, they require me to have money up front, because the first fees start coming in right away. Like I did a video on it, but basically I'll have like the application and then the first agency fee and then the home study fee, all like boom, boom, boom. So, and then after the home study's final, then I have the first country fee and the second agency fee or something like that. Like it all like is on top of each other until my dossier is in the country, and then it stalls very briefly until I get a match. But after my home study is approved, I can apply for grants and stuff. So right now, my goal is 15,000 fundraised and 5,000 saved. And then once that happens, then I can start the process, and then continue saving, and then apply for grants and whatnot, and hopefully get the rest organized in time for her to come home. But yeah, so everything's kind of stalled right now, but I just feel so, call it whatever you want, fate, God, destiny, whatever you want to call it, but this is where I'm meant to be. I have worked on the last 3 years. All the emotions I've gone through, everything has been to bring me to this point. The people that I've met online, the profiles I've come across, I mentioned one in another video, which like I said, I'll post her Instagram down below, but she adopted a little girl with Down syndrome from Bulgaria, and she's also Canadian, she's also a single mom by choice, And it was funny because shortly after filming that video, I was going through my adoption paperwork again. I have 2 people written down as references for the agency, and the number 1 on the list was this woman. And I had just stumbled across her Instagram, and I realized I stumbled across someone else's blog, and I'm pretty sure it's the other name on my list. So like things are just like connecting. I can't remember the quote. I'll try to remember to post it on Instagram or something, but Tina from Tweedledee10 keeps saying stuff about, I think it's a Steve Jobs quote or something, about connecting dots. You can't connect the dots looking forward. And that's kind of how I feel like now, where I couldn't see where I was meant to be when I was in that moment, whereas now I can see all the dots. So some of those dots include in 2014 when I was filling out my adoption paperwork, I was hesitant to check off the box for Down syndrome as a special need I was willing to accept. And that was because me and a coworker had talked probably a year before that, and we were talking about fetal alcohol because where I was living and teaching, there was a lot of children with fetal alcohol syndrome, and we were saying about how scary Down syndrome is and how it's scarier than fetal alcohol was. And so I was really hesitant to check off that box because all I could think of is, I know how challenging fetal alcohol is. I have no idea where to even start with Down syndrome. So I did do a lot of research then. Before checking that box, I researched everything on my list before checking it off or not checking it off. But that was one of the things that I researched into, and I was like, you know what? I could probably handle this. I knew it wasn't likely, but I did check it off. And when I met with the agency, I had specifically mentioned Down syndrome at that point with the agency in 2014, and she had suggested doing public adoption, so adoption from foster care. I had called the agency, the social worker there in Manitoba, but I didn't get a call back, and then I tried again a couple months later, didn't get a call back. Eventually I did get a hold of someone, and it turned out because of where I was living, I was not able to even do the process for public adoption. But now, knowing what I know with children with Down syndrome in Canada, like, it's not, I wouldn't have gotten a child with Down syndrome. I would have had a different special need placed. So that just wasn't meant to be. Everything with all the adoptions falling through, those weren't my children. Those weren't my children. As much as it hurt to have a birth mom say, I've changed my mind, or abandon them at the hospital, or whatever they chose to do at that time, as much as that hurt, those weren't my children. Those weren't my little girls or little boys. They weren't my children. And then I had met with the agency in 2015 in the summer when I came home, and right away the first thing she said when she looked at my list was says Down syndrome. She said that's where you want to aim. And then I still wasn't sure, and I went home and I read some more and I researched some more, and I just wasn't sure. And then, like, with IVF being an option, and like I said, I was there's got to be an easier way. There's got to be an easier way. Then I went on a cruise in October 2015, and it just happened to be the Buddy Cruise, which is it's a huge conference for families with children with Down syndrome, and it really opened my eyes to see the ability and not the disability. I saw what they're capable of, and there were so many of them and it was such a wide range of children that it was just, I don't know, it was just amazing. And some of my best memories from that cruise were with children with Down syndrome or adults with Down syndrome. And just, I still was hesitant, but during the IVF process, or the testing process, because I actually didn't do IVF, my drives to the fertility clinic were mostly listening to podcasts about international adoption and Down syndrome. And because it was 2 hours both ways, 2 hours both ways. So I listened to 4 podcasts each time I went, 2 there, 2 back, which I'll post those down below as well if you're interested in checking them out. But creating a family and downright dads, or downright awesome dads, they're the ones that I was listening to, and just really eye-opening. And it's just funny that in the end, that's where I ended up through all of that. All the testing and all the stuff with the embryo adoption and stuff, I still knew that that's where I was meant to be. And like I said, whatever you want to call it, but fate intervened and pushed me to where I am now. And I will fight to keep going this way. So anyway, this very long video that it's going to take me forever to edit was basically to say that there are so many children with Down syndrome in other countries that are neglected because of what they have, and it's just an extra chromosome, and it's not something that should be considered a death sentence for these poor children that have they have so much life in them, and it's our job as human beings to go out there and help these children and bring, if you're considering adoption, please consider adopting a child with Down syndrome or any other special need internationally, just because we have the resources here. And yes, it does cost money. Yes, it's a hard road to get there. Yes, it involves traveling and a lot of scary, scary stuff with paperwork and whatnot, but they deserve to have a family just as much of any other child in this world, and I just can't wait to bring my little girl home. So anyway, that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Go check out all the links in the description box below, as well as anything that has popped up on the side there. Questions and comments go down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you guys later. Bye guys.